the tennis world is still picking its jaw up off the floor. In what can only be described as the most seismic upset of the 2026 season, 21-year-old Filipina sensation Alexandra Eala just did the unthinkable. She dismantled the reigning world #1 and defending U.S. Open champion Aryna Sabalenka right in the heart of the American capital. The Mubadala DC Open witnessed a changing of the guard as Eala, ranked number 28 in the world, played with the fearless abandon of a seasoned champion, exposing cracks in the Belarusian powerhouse's game that no one saw coming. From the very first point, it was clear this was not going to be a routine victory for the top seed. What unfolded over the next 2 hours was nothing short of a tennis masterclass that will be replayed for generations. This is the story of how a young woman from the Philippines shocked the sport to its very core. The air inside the stadium was thick with anticipation, a palpable tension that only the biggest matches can generate. On one side of the net stood Aryna Sabalenka, the world #1, a two-time Australian Open champion and the reigning U.S. Open titlist, a player whose raw power had bulldozed through the women's tour for years. Her presence alone was enough to intimidate most opponents. On the other side, barely 21 years old and carrying the weight of an entire nation's hopes, stood Alexandra Eala of the Philippines. To the casual observer, this looked like a mismatch, a routine quarterfinal victory for the top seed. The betting odds heavily favored Sabalenka, and most pundits had already penciled her into the semifinals. But tennis, as they say, is played on the court, not on paper. Eala, however, was not the same player who had burst onto the scene a few years ago. This was a young woman transformed. Just weeks earlier at Wimbledon, she had stunned the tennis world by defeating the defending champion Iga Swiatek, proving that she belonged on the biggest stages. That victory had given her an unshakable belief, a quiet confidence that radiated from her as she walked onto the court. She knew she had the game to beat anyone, and she was determined to prove it against the best player in the world. As the warm-ups concluded, a hush fell over the crowd. They were about to witness something extraordinary, something that would defy all expectations and rewrite the history books of the DC Open. The stage was set for a monumental upset, and Eala was ready to seize her moment. From the very first point, it was evident that Eala had come to play, not just to compete. She faced Sabalenka's infamous first serve with a fearless return that caught the Belarusian off guard. The Filipina strategy was simple yet devastatingly effective. She would not allow Sabalenka to dictate play. Instead of retreating behind the baseline, Eala stepped inside the court, taking the ball early and redirecting the pace with surgical precision. Sabalenka, accustomed to overwhelming her opponents with sheer power, found herself facing a wall. Her bombs were coming back with interest, forcing her into uncharacteristic errors. The first few games were a tense exchange of holds, but the tension in the stadium was reaching a fever pitch. Then came the turning point. With Sabalenka serving at 3-4, Eala pounced. She unleashed a series of blistering forehand winners that had the world #1 scrambling. The crowd erupted as Eala secured the first break of the match, a stunning development that silenced the Sabalenka camp. Serving for the set, Eala showed nerves of steel. She didn't falter, didn't overhit. She played with a maturity beyond her years, moving Sabalenka from corner to corner until the Belarusian's forehand found the net. The set belonged to Eala, 6-4, and the stadium was in a state of shock. The giant had been pricked, and the underdog was roaring. It wasn't just that she had won the set. It was how she had won the set. It was how she had won it. She had outplayed the world #1 from the baseline in a power display that left everyone wondering just how high her ceiling truly was. Champions are defined by their ability to respond to adversity, and Aryna Sabalenka is nothing if not a champion. The second set began with a renewed sense of urgency from the world #1. She adjusted her strategy, deciding to come to the net more frequently to shorten the points and prevent Eala from settling into her rhythm. The tactic worked initially, as Sabalenka's aggressive fourways forward yielded immediate results. She broke Eala's serve early in the set, unleashing a primal roar that had been conspicuously absent in the first set. The momentum had shifted. Sabalenka began to dictate with her forehand, painting the lines with the kind of winners that had made her the most feared player on tour. Eala, for the first time in the match, looked slightly unsettled. The weight of the moment, the pressure of holding a lead against the world number one, began to show. Sabalenka sensed the shift and tightened her grip, racing to a 5-2 lead. It seemed the expected order was being restored. But Eala refused to capitulate. She dug deep, holding serve and then forcing Sabalenka to serve out the set. The Belarusian did so with a thunderous ace, taking the second set 6-3 and leveling the match. As they sat down during the changeover, the momentum was clearly with Sabalenka, and the crowd braced itself for a dominant third set from the top seed. Many thought the young Filipina's fairy tale was about to end. They underestimated the heart of a champion in the making. Eala looked across the net, her expression unreadable. She had been here before, and she knew that the battle was just beginning. The final set was a test of wills, a gladiatorial contest that pushed both players to their absolute limits. Sabalenka, riding the wave of her second set victory, came out firing. She broke Eala immediately, taking a 2-0 lead, and the stadium fell silent. It looked like the inevitable was unfolding. The world number one was too strong, too experienced. But Alexandra Eala had other ideas. She responded by breaking right back, a gutsy move that sent a clear message. She was not going away. What followed was some of the most breathtaking tennis of the entire tournament. The rallies became longer, the shots more audacious. Eala was retrieving everything, sliding and stretching to keep the ball in play, while Sabalenka grew increasingly frustrated, her ground strokes beginning to spray wide. The pivotal moment came at 4-4. With Sabalenka serving, Eala played the most spectacular point of the match. A 28-shot rally that ended with a running forehand down the line that left Sabalenka rooted to the spot. The crowd rose to its feet, the noise deafening. That point broke Sabalenka's spirit. Eala held her nerve and served for the match. She didn't crumble. She didn't hesitate. With a calm that belied her age, she fired 2 aces and watched as Sabalenka's final forehand sailed long. The match was over. Alexandra Eala had done it. She had defeated the world number one, Aryna Sabalenka, in one of the greatest upsets in tennis history. The scoreline read 6-4, 3-6, 6-4. The impossible had become reality. As the final point landed, the stadium erupted in a cacophony of cheers, a standing ovation for the new queen of the DC Open. Alex Eala dropped her racket and fell to her knees, her hands covering her face as the tears of joy began to flow. She had just achieved the pinnacle of her young career, defeating the undisputed best player in the world on one of the sport's biggest stages. The victory was not just a personal triumph, but a monumental moment for Philippine sports. She became the first Filipino player to defeat a world number one, etching her name alongside the country's greatest sporting heroes. In her post-match interview, a visibly emotional Eala dedicated the win to her family and her nation, thanking them for their unwavering support. Sabalenka, gracious in defeat, acknowledged that Eala was simply the better player on the day, praising her fearless tennis. This victory at the DC Open, following her stunning win over Swiatek at Wimbledon, cements Eala's status as a legitimate contender for Grand Slam titles. The tennis world is officially on notice. The era of Sabalenka, Swiatek, and Gauff now has a new, formidable challenger. The future of women's tennis is bright, and it shines with the brilliance of Alexandra Eala. From the hard courts of Washington, D.C., to the grandest stages of the world, a new star has truly arrived, and she is here to stay. If you enjoyed this latest tennis update and want to stay ahead of the biggest stories in the world, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe the channel right now. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of the action. See you in the next video.